Hello friends and fellow bibliophiles, welcome back to Cat's Novel Adventures. It's tag time. Today I am doing the currently reading book tag. The currently reading book tag was originally created by Charley Ray over at Charley Ray and Horse. I happen to be tagged by Olly over at Criminale, as well as by Sue over at Sue Jackson. Both Olly and Sue have wonderful channels, and I would strongly encourage you to check them both out. And I'm very excited that they both tagged me, so I can't wait to get started. There are 10 questions to this tag, so let's begin. Question number 1 is, how many books do you read at once? Generally, I read 3 books at a time. I like to read a children's lit selection, a short story collection, or maybe a nonfiction, and then I always have an adult fiction book going all at the same time. So for example, I'm currently reading a middle grade book called The Miraculous by Jess Redman. I'm reading this for Middle Grade March Book Club. And then I'm reading short stories, Miss Marple, The Complete Short Stories by Agatha Christie. This is for my year of Christie. And then I'm reading a novella out of the If It Bleeds collection by Stephen King. I have to read this novella in order to see what Holly's up to before I dive into the new release of Holly. And I also started this story in celebration for Stephen King's birthday. But as you can see, I have an adult fiction, some short stories, as well as a middle grade selection. And it just changes up as it goes depending on what kind of a readathon or reading event I'm doing at the time. Question number 2 is, if you're reading more than one book at a time, how do you decide to switch to reading the other book? Do you read a certain amount of pages each? Well, it just depends on how I'm doing as far as meeting deadlines. Like if I have a book club meeting to attend, I may read more of one book than the other. It depends on if it's getting close to the end of the month. I might be reading another book more than the other. But generally, I try to read something out of each book each day. Like if I have about an hour in the morning to read, I will split the time evenly between the 3 books and give like 20 minutes each. Now, sometimes that works really great, sometimes not, because say for example, I'm reading my first book and I have 2 pages left before the end of the chapter and the alarm goes off, well then I will finish those 2 pages, which means that I cut into the time of the second book I want to dive into. Sometimes I might only have a little bit of time in the morning to read, so I'll choose maybe a short story to read in the morning, and then later in the afternoon or in the evening, I'll get to the other 2 books. Sometimes I might just read 1 book out of the 3 on a particular day, just depending on how busy I am. I also have to add that sometimes if a book is really, really awesome and I'm really invested in it and I don't want to put it down, I will just go ahead and use my time for that 1 book and then put those other 2 books to the side. And then once I'm finished the book that I'm reading, because it's so awesome, then I will finish it and then pick up the other 2. So there really is not a set method. It just is all dependent on what's going on. It's dependent on how much I'm into the book. So I don't know. There's just a lot of factors to answering that question. Question number 3 is, do you ever switch bookmarks while you're partway through a book? Yes, but only if I happen to be using a receipt or a Post-it note or something that I just had to grab to mark my spot because I didn't have a bookmark handy at the moment. But as soon as I can get to where I keep my bookmarks, I throw that temporary bookmark away and use a real bookmark. Question number 4 is, where do you keep the book you're currently reading? I keep all the books that I'm currently reading in a stack on my nightstand next to my bed. That way I know exactly where they are and I can just go grab one and read it wherever I'm reading at the moment, which could be in my living room, it could be out on my porch, I could be bringing it with me somewhere for an appointment, because I never like to leave my house without a book. And then it's always there when I'm ready to read right before bed. But to me, I know exactly where my books are if they're in that one central location. Question number 5 is, what time of day do you spend the most time reading? I would have to say I spend most of my time reading in the morning, and that would be correct for both during the week as well as on the weekends. Even on the 2 days a week that I work, I do find a little time in the morning to read. On those days, I will tend to read a little more in the afternoon, but I read pretty much all throughout the day. But if I have to say where I get the majority of my reading done, I would have to say it's in the morning. Question number 6 is, how long do you typically read in one go? Well, I would say realistically anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour. Very rarely do I have the luxury of reading more than an hour. Believe me, if I could read a couple of hours at a time, that would be awesome. And I do think that's what contributes to me reading more than one book at a time, because some books you need to devote a little more time to, like to really get into them, while others, 30 minutes, you could read a snippet of it and be okay with it. So yeah, between 30 minutes and an hour. Question number 7, do you read hardcovers with the dust jacket on or off? Typically, I leave the dust jacket on. Every once in a while, I might take it off if it's one that is bothering me. It's usually if it's a book that's really big, I'll take the dust jacket off of that. And sometimes if I'm traveling, I will take the dust jacket off and put that book in a book sleeve to protect it. But otherwise, majority of the time, I keep my dust jacket on. Question number 8, I think is kind of funny. It is, which position do you mainly use to read? And I'm assuming it's your bodily position. And I would say that I pretty much always sit up. So I'm either sitting up on my sofa, in a comfortable chair, and even sitting up in my bed. I really don't read very well laying down. So probably the only time I could ever say like I'm kind of inclined back a little bit might be if I'm at the beach or I'm reading by a pool or something like that. But most of the time I'm positioned upright because I have a better chance of not falling asleep while I'm reading. Question number 9, do you take the book you're currently reading everywhere you go? Yes, yes, yes. I never leave my home without a book, because you just don't know if you're going to have some extra time to squeeze in some reading. Reading is my favorite activity to do, and I don't mind waiting somewhere if I have a book with me, because it's a great way to pass the time. So 100% definitely always taking a book when I leave my house. Question number 10, how often do you update your progress on Goodreads? I really don't update very often. I update twice, and that is when I start the book and when I finish the book, along with writing a review at the time that I finish, which generally I will try to write that review the day that I finish, but usually within a couple of days of finishing it. But I'm just not one that's going to update, what page number I'm getting to or anything like that. There is actually an additional question to this tag. Question number 11 is, who would you like to tag? Well, guess what? I have 3 people. Tag You're It, Alex, over at Frank Fiction. Tag You're It, Al, over at Big Al Does BookTube. And tag You're It, Vanessa, over at Read with Dr. B. And of course, anybody else that wants to do this tag, you are welcome to do it if you have not already. I really had fun answering the questions for this tag. Thanks again, Olly and Sue, for tagging me. Thanks everyone for watching. I really do appreciate you stopping by. What are your thoughts about some of my answers to the questions? And how do you feel about reading one book or multiple books at a time? Are you one that likes to leave the dust jacket on or off? And do you have a favorite position that you read in? Please let me know in the comments below. In the meantime, stay amazing and be adventurous.